AskReddit by AskReddit. What is the most tragic announcement that was made at your high school? A popular girl had died in a car accident. It was super tragic as it was caused by her drunk best friend, who was never the same after that. They gave everyone the day off. They had a huge assembly with student musicians who wrote songs about her tragic death, and her friends who gave speeches about her. A less popular girl also died the same year. Crickets. Barely a mention in business as usual. I felt bad. Like, both deaths were tragic, but popular girl's was more tragic because she was popular. This is the reason all schools should have crisis plans that detail how staff and student deaths will be handled, with each one handled the same. This includes how the death is announced, how students and staff will be supported, and whether the person will be memorialized in school. I feel awful for the family of the second girl who died. Death of a student who'd graduated the year prior. Guy went into the Marines, got sick during boot camp and they didn't let him go to the hospital until it was too late. The funeral procession drove by the school and anyone that wanted to go out to see was free to do so. Had a fire truck with the ladder extended holding up a banner too. He was one of the nicest guys you'd ever know. Jesus. Got sick with what? Elementary school actually. A girl in the grade above mine died on Christmas Day. She was decorating the tree on Christmas Eve and fell off a ladder and banged her head. She thought she was okay but died of internal bleeding later that night. That was 50 years ago and I still think of her every Christmas Eve. Those freak accidents where the person dies later, unknowingly, are the most tragic emo. Which was what happened when I was in school. Girl took a softball to the throat. Nothing happened in the moment, but she later died, I assume of an injury to her trachea. Not me but my little sister's school got shut down by police last year. BC an 11-year-old girl took her own life in the bathroom. Absolutely tragic. I was upset and I don't even go there. 11? Are you fucking kidding me? What the hell is wrong with us as a country society people that an 11 years old feels so helpless and hopeless that she feels her only escape and sense of relief is death? This is horrible. I can't imagine what her parents must have felt at the time and continue to feel. The death of a student I'd never met. The entire school went into grief mode and even a mass was held for him. Catholic school. My graduating class had 3 students die before graduation, plus a teacher. I will never forget how chilling it was to hear them announce it to the school. The first boy died of dehydration in 7th grade. One girl died in a car accident over winter break and it gave the students time to come to terms with it. One girl died in a car accident with her little brother in the car. He died a few days later. The school thought it pertinent to announce it before class change and I don't remember the halls being silent before or after that. It was terrible but the administration learned from that mistake because when the teacher passed, they announced her death at the beginning of a class period. She went to work that day and had a seizure on premises and was brought to the hospital via ambulance. Her son was also a teacher at the school. When you say grief mode, I understand what you mean. The grief affects everyone, not just the friends of the lost. I was not close friends with the deceased, but I knew all of them because it was a small school. I felt so much guilt that one of the girls and I weren't friends. It was horrible. Not high school, but in college we had mandatory chapel, private Christian college. On the day we returned for the spring semester, it was announced that one of my friends had committed suicide the night before. None of his friends were told prior to the chapel service. It was devastating. Edit. For people asking, it was MVNU. This wasn't UNW in Roseville, was it? Not an announcement per se, but my entire high school was watching the Space Shuttle Challenger launch live on TV. Same. I was in middle school and it took us a minute to figure out what happened. I went to Columbine High School in 1999. I'm sorry. We are similarly aged and Columbine shook me. I hope you've had the necessary support systems to survive more than just that day. Husband's high school principal, students, we're on fire. 80s high school students, we don't need no water, let the MF burn. Planes crashing into the Twin Towers. Everyone was scared. This. We all gathered around a TV watching the news and saw the second one hit live. JFK assassination. I was in kindergarten. They told us President Kennedy has been shot and sent us home. I walked the mile home and walked in the kitchen and my mother asks, why are you home? Guess who told her? My mother's death was announced at my school. Why, may I ask? French teacher died in a car crash. She was nice. It was a shame. C'est très triste. 9/11 attacks in third period bio class. My dad was my high school principal. He had to make an announcement over the intercom to the whole school about what was happening. I obviously knew him way better than the average student and I could hear in his voice that he was scared and didn't really know what was going on. That honestly made it even harder since he was my dad and not just some administrator. As a freshman in high school, I don't think I truly understood the magnitude of what was happening until I noticed how adults were acting. A student in my year 12, was killed driving during the half-year break. She was one of the relatively few to have her license, Australia, so age cost means it's not that common. She was hit by a speeding car that crossed a wide median verge to her. There was nothing she could have done. Salient lesson at the right time for the rest of us, tragically. One of our professors dying of cancer, but it happened months after we graduated. It hit me hard because if it weren't for him caring so much about me, I would have dropped out at the end of the 4th year. My alma mater's campus photographer died of cancer last year. He was a really cool, sweet guy. The last time I saw him, I promised that I would let him take my headshot before I began applying for jobs. He died before we could arrange it. I miss him. 2 suicides within a few months in 2021. One of them was a gay kid bullied by the football players. School did nothing except bring in service dogs for a day. I really hope those football players have to live with the guilt every single day. Did any of them show remorse or were they still being jerks? VA Tech shooting. Killed 2 very recent alumni of my high school who were both insanely talented bright young women. Whole school of 3,000 kids ground to a halt for a day. My professor in college at the time, his son was on campus prepping to defend his PhD. He called him in the middle of our class to say he was hiding but safe. Haunting. Counseling services for friends of the obnoxious football player who made fun of me when he was in a car that drunkenly careened off a cliff in another state. Not a peep for my shy classmate who suffocated himself with a plastic bag. I'll never forget that. The ones I remember. A local restaurant's roof collapsed during the lunch rush with 5 of our students inside. They were okay but another lady died. A classmate's mother died from a brain tumor they'd found less than a week before. The superintendent accidentally shot and killed his 8-year-old granddaughter who was a student at the elementary school. We had Preg 12th all on one campus. The third one, what the F question mark? In elementary school, a radio news station came over the loudspeakers. The teacher went out into the hall to find out what was going on and came back crying. President Kennedy had been assassinated. That was as dramatic as my history teacher having the most worried and scared look and vibe that he ever portrayed. He was a Vietnam vet, volunteer college peace officer, and history teacher. He flicked on the TV after he asked us if we'd heard what had happened that day. Terrorists had brought down one of the Twin Towers while the other smoked like crazy. It was so hopeless when the second fell. He calmly said, "Ladies and gentlemen, you are the next generation that will enter a world war." I will never forget that. A dead teacher, a dead student, and the new teacher. What happened? Were those two deaths related? The 22nd of November, 1963 JFK assassination. Notre Dame HS in Detroit. We had a football game that night for the city championship. We went, no bands or celebrations. We lost. My grandma was in freshman English at St. Charles Borromeo in Detroit. She said the school effectively shut down after that, cancelled all events. The shooting at Columbine High School and our school went on lockdown. Our beloved art teacher was killed in a car accident. He was my mom's art teacher in school as well, and he was just so freaking cool. He reminded me of Bob Ross. He was T-boned by a police officer that was responding to a call. The officer happened to be my best friend's uncle, and he was never the same after that. He was also the husband of my 4th grade teacher, so I knew her as well. We were all called into the assembly room and his wife stood up and announced his death to all the students. She was so stoic, but you could tell she was devastated. Absolutely heartbreaking, and still to this day, 25 years later, I still think about him.